You are listening to 95.7 FM WELT, Fort Wayne, radioactive. The opinions and views expressed in this show are those of the hosts and guests only. They do not represent those of FreeThought Fort Wayne, WELT, or any other organization. Welcome to the Hoosier Humanist Hour, where we explore science, religion, culture, ethics, and community from the humanist perspective. Join us as we discuss those topics and more, free from the ideologies of religion and superstition.
Hello and welcome to the Hoosier Humanist Hour. This show, as usual, is put together by members of FreeThought Fort Wayne, a chapter of the American Humanist Association. To get in touch with us, you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/FreeThoughtFW. You can send us an email, fortwayneaha@gmail.com. You can leave us a message at our phone number, 260-376-2268. I have a website, freethoughtfw.org. All those are good ways to get in touch with us. Today, we have myself, V, we have Caleb, we have D, and we have our sound engineer, Andrew, on the show. I think we have an interesting show today. Have some good things to share with you. We're going to talk a little bit about humanism and what is humanism, and then we're going to move on to what humanists or secular organizations are out there. What are resources that humanists can use that don't involve religious organizations, obviously. So let's begin. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, man. Busy, but good. Doing good.
Yeah, well, good. So, we've talked about humanism many times in this show, what it is, what it isn't, things like that. So, I mean, I've often said that, humanism builds on top of atheism, atheism being the lack of belief in a God. And humanism basically adds this progressive view of life, this philosophy of life, if you want to call it that, where, we strive for improvements in society and in the world without the need for a God. That's a very concise description. Do you guys think that's a good description? Do you agree with that, or do you have your own take on it? What do you think?
Yeah, that it's fair enough. I just, the way that you describe it makes it sound like you couldn't be a theist and still be a humanist, though.
Well,
it's really,
can you?
It's kind of the vibe. I would say you can. So far as if you look at it like a political worldview, you just take out the atheist requirement, and you just say that humanism is a worldview structured around the idea that you can do X without the assumption that the supernatural is going to intervene.
I think it almost has a religious feel to it, though. Like if you're a humanist, especially if you approach it stemming from atheism, it seems to me like nihilism is just as rational as a outcome of atheism as humanism is. Humanism is almost just like a choice to believe in the power of the human and what we can achieve and what we can build together. Does it have a religious connotation to you? Almost like a faith in believing in this particular way?
Well, I definitely have to agree that it's a choice. It is a choice to believe these things. You don't have to. Nobody said that. There's like, if you don't think that there is a supernatural force that guides this world that's gonna force you to be good or punish you, I suppose you don't necessarily have to think that improvement of society is a goal for your life. You may turn it into a more selfish worldview, but I think even with that, to an extent, when you better society, you'll better yourself. So even like a really selfish perspective, I think would still lead you to at least some of the aspects of humanism. But just to give let me just throw one more thing. To agree with you, Caleb, there is a member of our group actually that identifies as a pantheist. Now, I'm not entirely clear on what all that entails, but she's a very valuable member to our group. She's very much appreciated. Even was in the board of directors until recently, actually. So I suppose you could be a humanist and have some, I guess, supernatural views. But I would say that, if you believe in like the strict monotheistic gods, like I think that's a little more opposed to what humanism is, as I understand it, at least.
It's kind of like saying like humans are the highest ideal. Would be the continuation of the complexity of a human and human culture and human life. And that would be the highest ideal, as opposed to like humans being gone entirely from the universe. That doesn't sound very good.
I think humanism is an attempt to, recognize and get everybody to contribute to at least some form of solidarity. But at the same time, humanism also forces us to recognize that we are just animals like every other beast that's out there.
I agree. I think that's almost like a primary tenet of being a humanist, is that you can't really be a creationist and be a humanist, can you? I don't know. Maybe you can.
That would be a good stretch. That would be a good stretch.
I'm pretty sure you're going to have some contradictory things going on in your worldview, but it's possible, I'm sure. But kind of ish along these lines, though, because you were talking about nihilism and we were kind of okay. So I was having a conversation with my wife the other day, and she's trying to discover herself right now. She's kind of in that process. And so we started talking about the importance of self. She's looking into Buddhism at the moment, and Buddhism is they try to get you to acknowledge how irrelevant you are, essentially. And I was just, I told her at that time, I was like, look, the way that I feel, the way that I see it is, I think it's important to recognize that you as an individual are important, but the larger you make your scale, the less important, the less relevant you become. So you're important on individual personal scales, but just on a cosmic level, yes, we mean basically absolutely nothing. But to my son, I'm the world to him. So it depends on your perspective.
Well, Buddhism, for example, it's a good example. Some forms of Buddhism are theistic and some are non-theistic. Buddhism could be just a philosophy of life. I used to know which forms of Buddhism were which, and I'm not going to even try to guess right now on the spot here. But, I think like maybe it was Mahayana Buddhism was the theistic kind. I could be wrong on that. I'm not going to guess. But yeah, there are various forms there.
Yeah, I've heard that there are forms of Buddhism wherein they recognize either Buddha as some deity, or I've also heard that there are also Buddhist traditions that recognize a sort of pantheism, where they recognize the universe itself as a deity, but an intelligent one. But as far as I knew, I actually wasn't aware of this until relatively recently. This is something that I came about, maybe 3-4 years ago, because I'd looked into Buddhism and I didn't see it as a theistic religion myself, anyway. Buddha even allegedly anyway, Buddha even said that he wanted to be deity. So I don't know too much about it. But that's the extent of my knowledge on it.
Yeah. There's like so many different labels for everything out there. I like humanism because I kind of believe that humans is as good as it gets, so let's try to do the best we can as humans and make human everything good. It's pretty general
I mean,
belief
even if
system
it's
there,
not
but
as good as it gets, it's at least we have become the most powerful creature on this earth. I mean, we're certainly, we've transformed the entire planet. Like no other animal has probably transformed the planet, unless you count like blue-green algae that created the oxygen on this earth, and those kind of things. But from if you exclude like the very very tiny life forms, if you just stick to like animals that have some significant size to them, we are the most influential animal on this planet. And as some people have said, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think humanism gives us also that responsibility as the most powerful creature out there, to take care of this planet and to take care of other creatures. And because it's not just about humans, I don't think, at least to me it isn't. It's also about minimizing suffering for animals, for example, or protecting their environment, and not causing suffering when we can prevent it. Human treatment of animals, like all those kind of things, I think are very much part of humanism, at least for me.
Yeah, I gravitated towards humanism, oddly enough, because it meant my political worldviews almost to a T. In fact, I would go so far now as to say 100% to a T. Because before, I was very anti-abortion for the longest time, but at the time, I didn't want my anti-abortion mentality. I knew it was my opinions that to dictate what other people could or couldn't do. I was already of the opinion that just because I believe this doesn't mean other people should be forced to conform to, their worldviews to mine. So I just kind of dealt with that. And so I had my own personal beliefs, and then I had my political beliefs. I kind of kept those two separated somehow. That's how I avoided having to deal with contradictions. Once I started looking at the two, I realized, I can't make this work.
Right.
I can't make so that's how I ended up gravitating towards humanism.
I mean, if you read the Humanist Manifesto, and there's several versions of it, I mean, there isn't much to disagree with. It's this kind of hippie philosophy, and it's all about goodness and betterment and improvement and progress, and all these terms that I don't know. I'm sure some people disagree with, and maybe strongly, but I can't find much in there to disagree with.
Has anybody have we read a definition of humanism yet? Did you read one, Bess?
I haven't looked at one in a long time, to be honest with you.
The best one that go ahead.
Well, it's just a simple Wikipedia. It's just a couple sentences. It basically says humanism, it's a noun, an outlook or system of thought attaching prime importance to human rather than divine or supernatural matters. Humanist beliefs stress the potential value and goodness of human beings, emphasize common human needs, and seek solely rational ways of solving human problems. That's it.
Yes, and that's a good point too, man. I really like that definition because it really ties down how you can defend your perspective. It gives you an epistemology there, and I like that. That's a very good definition.
Yeah, it's pretty
general.
general.
Have you guys ever went on to the American Humanist Association and actually check out the Humanist Manifesto?
No, I have not.
Okay, so I mean, we're a chapter of the AHA, right?
Wait, before you continue, is this like the Humanist Bible?
No. It's very simple. I mean, it's like a one-page document, right?
Why do they have to call it a manifesto? It just sounds.
I don't know. Somebody wrote the first version of it in 1933. Okay.
Open your Humanist Manifesto and turn to chapter 10, verse 3.
You may go to like paragraph 10 because there's about that many, but it's not even enough for a full chapter there, right? It's very simple and concise, just to kind of go over some things that it says, and then I'm picking kind of there's a few sentences here that are written in bold, and it talks about knowledge of the world is derived by observation, experimentation, and rational analysis. Humans are an integral part of nature, the result of unguided evolutionary change. Ethical values are derived from human need and interest as tested by experience. Life's fulfillment emerges from individual participation and service of humane ideals, and so on. There's a lot more to it. I kind of started right in the middle of it, so this may not make much sense like that, but it just kind of gives you an idea of the tone of that manifesto. It's an interesting read. It's just a short read. It'll take you just a second. If anybody's interested. And that's the third version. There's three versions of it. The original one that came out in 1933. I think this one was written in the early 90s. And there was another one that was kind of in the 60s or 70s that somebody wrote. So it's been rewritten a few times, but it's an interesting document.
There's three versions of it too? Wow.
Yes.
Which one's more authentic?
They're all authentic, but it's just basically, it's been rewritten as time goes on, as society has changed, with it, humanism has changed with society, basically.
Okay, so you're basically saying that humanism has changed over time within the last 100 years. Like,
oh yeah,
what a humanist 100 years ago would see things totally different than a humanist now. Not necessarily totally different, but
no, it's just there's society has changed. Now we're impacting global warming, where in 1933 that wasn't the case. So we have to address that. Since 1933, communism came and went, Nazism came and went. All these different things happen. So the world changes, right? We can't just stay in one place, and that's actually a good point. Humanism is an ever-changing philosophy. It evolves as we evolve, as the world changes. It changes, but I think the principles of goodness are just restated more than that they have really changed. They're just restated.
So the manifesto kind of operates as almost like humanist issues to be paid attention to for our time, but the actual kind of philosophy of humanism has stayed the same, more or less.
Yeah, but those things are intertwined.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely, but they're intertwined. So it's not very easy to separate those things.
I think an analogy could be made that humanism has changed for the same reasons that science has.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've uncovered new things, and we've changed. Some of the famous humanists out there, and I'm sure everybody has heard of Isaac Asimov. Even Einstein apparently has identified as humanist. Gloria Steinem, she's active today.
You know what? Maybe I should rephrase it, to be honest with you. I think I should restate it that our understanding of humanism has changed for the same reason that our understanding of science has changed. I think that's a better way of putting it. Sorry, okay. I really wanted to put that out there the way I phrased it the first time, as soon as I thought about it.
I think that makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, just over the last 100 years, the amount of knowledge that's come in, that has changed our view of the cosmos has been staggering. So I can't see how your idea of humanism wouldn't change along with that.
Yeah, I mean, now we even have the opportunity to touch other planets. We have landed multiple probes in different worlds, even on comets. I mean, we had a probe land on a comet. I mean, that was unthinkable when the first Humanist Manifesto was written. We have the Voyager probes have left the solar system. Basically they're now beyond the region of space where the sun is the kind of the dominant force. They're basically, the Voyager probes are now more or less in interstellar space. and yet we can still receive a signal from those probes, and we can probe interstellar space. So that was just unthinkable at the time when the original manifestos were written.
Yeah,
isn't that crazy to think, though?
That is crazy. Well, yeah, I was thinking in Hubble, finding out what those clusters are out in the sky, that there are other galaxies, and all of a sudden, I mean, just that would be a staggering insight from humanity.
People used to think that all those dots in the sky were stars, when in fact many of them are entire galaxies. I mean, if that's not mind-boggling, I don't know what is.
They used to think they were holes poked into a curtain. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
You gotta start somewhere, man. I mean, you don't just intuit this stuff.
Yeah. No. It was a good guess.
So what would humanism be when we thought that stars were just holes in a curtain? Was there a humanism back then, and what would it consist of?
Where would it be back then?
That's a good question. There are some Greek philosophers like Lucretius, Democritus, like some of those people, that have written positive philosophies of life that have lacked the supernatural, and they were a reflection of their time. For all I know, some of those people may have loved slavery. I don't know. But, they tried.
Well, we were just talking last week about, I don't even think I remembered the name of the tribe last week. So I guess I don't feel so bad for not remembering this week either. But there is this tribe, at least one that I'm aware of, and I'm pretty sure there's at least a handful of them still left, of isolated tribes people. And there's one in particular that I'm thinking of that is so isolated and so radically different from us. They don't even have a concept of the afterlife or of God. In fact, it doesn't even exist in their language. They don't have a word for God. They don't have a word for the heaven or hell or the great beyond or anything like that. And I think, if I was to try to think, okay, if I lived in that society and I wanted to be a humanist, is that possible? I think that you could be, absolutely.
It seems like it would be likely. It seems like that would be the definition of humanism to some extent. But, I mean, do you know if that tribe is still superstitious in ways? I'm sure they have to be.
They're still superstitious. They have their own. They're superstitious in that they still worship nature. They have a lore about they have stigmatas. They believe in like karma type things. So they're still very superstitious. I mean, they just don't have a concept of a soul or a god or anything like that. If I recall correctly, as far as I'm aware, when one of their tribesmen passes away, they just bury him and move on. They don't really think about it too much. I guess is the gist of it.
Well, I wonder if.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I wonder if humanism really is just a natural byproduct of releasing superstition from your belief system, like in its entirety or as much as possible. It seems like you would just inevitably end up at a relatively close version of humanism for everybody if they did that. I mean, it seems to me like a natural byproduct of letting go of that, but I don't know if you guys agree with that.
I mean,
I kind of have to agree.
American Humanist Association, bumper sticker is good without a God. So if you can do that, maybe you're a humanist. See,
well, you know what? Speaking of, what kind of boggles my mind a little bit is the fact that, even most theists will agree that you can be good without God. And then we create a whole system that proves that you don't need. No, I would go so far as to say that humanism is really the only worldview that you can collectively come to from anywhere and have a consistent across the board worldview with just okay, maybe not across the board. Okay, there are still some gray areas, but that I think are inevitable.
Can you give me one? Yeah, give me one.
Sure.
If one comes
There
to mind.
are humanists that are both pro and anti-abortion, for example. Now, as far as I'm aware, I don't think that there's a humanist that would say that, even if the mother's life's in danger, you shouldn't have an abortion. But, there are some that would disagree on when it's okay to have an abortion. Some go really far down the line, where some go really high up. So there's always going to be contention here and there. But by and large, I'm pretty sure it's the most consistent worldview with reality that is possible.
Well, so let's move on to some of the resources that are out there for humanists. Humanism is so few people identify with humanism that resources may be not known very well to most people. So hopefully, this helps you. Not that you can't use Google, but I think if we walk you through some of the things that are out there, it may be helpful. It may be easier to discover. Obviously, FreeThought Fort Wayne is, as we say every time at the opening of the show, is a chapter of the American Humanist Association. There are 2 official chapters in Indiana and 1 affiliate, and we were the first Indiana chapter. So there are some resources with our group that, we can provide to people. We hold weekly meetings. We have a meeting on Sundays from 11 to 1 and on Wednesdays from 6 to 8. The Sunday meeting is at Old Crown. The Wednesday evening meeting has now been moved to Big Eye Fish Bar and Grill. That was the latest thing that's been posted on our Facebook page. And, what these meetings give people is the opportunity to meet like-minded people, to discuss topics of common interest, and just chat about general stuff. And I think they're fun. I mean, anytime I can, I am at the Sunday meetings. We normally record the podcast during the Wednesday meeting, so I can't make it there. But I think they're fun. What do you guys think?
I totally agree. Yeah, I really enjoy them. There's nothing formal about them. There's no reading of the Humanist Manifesto or anything like that.
Yeah, we don't do that. Don't worry.
It's purely casual, just conversation wherever it wanders. Good people.
Yeah,
it's fun.
I remember going there. I remember going there for weeks and having conversations about like first cause or genetics and things. Just random. Sometimes it got real philosophical or political, and other times we're just goofing around. I think the meetings are really fun.
Yeah, and it offers you the opportunity to build friendships with people where God is not going to be involved, and it gives you the opportunity. If you want to get involved with the group, you can help the group move in certain directions. We're very open to all of that. Our monthly meetings provide a little bit of a opportunity to do something different, or to do a little bit of activism in our small community here in town. As our monthly meetings, we've done, I think, some pretty interesting events out there. We've done bonfires, we've done stargazing, picnics, we've done cleanups. We've done donations for the homeless. We've done haircuts for the homeless. We've done movie nights. We had a movie premiere where the author of a documentary came to town in the library and showed us his brand new movie and talked to us a little bit about how he made the movie. All that kind of good stuff. We do lectures. We've had lectures on human sexuality, on evolution, had game nights, all kinds of interesting things we do.
And what else I think it's really good for too is if you're coming out of superstition and you have nobody to talk to. Like if
Yeah.
you're coming out of religion, like you're starting to like not buy it anymore. It's hard to talk to. I mean, there's a lot of resources on the internet, but it's nice to talk to people one-on-one, especially at all different levels of the continuum out of that. It's very helpful. It was helpful for me.
Sure. And to that, the American Humanist Association, if you go to their resources page, so if you just go to the AmericanHumanist.org and you go to the, there should be a resources tab or something like that, and right there, there's a section that's called grassroots resources, and you can go in there and you can find out about local chapters. So, if somebody is exiting religion, like you just said, you can easily go to the resource page and find out if there's a local chapter in your neighborhood or town or all that. Or there's resources on how to start your own group.
Yeah,
I think it can be very useful.
Briefly, while I'm thinking about it, I do want to say that hopefully by the time that this episode airs, because I believe we're a week behind,
Yes.
Hopefully by the time this episode airs, we will have our new webpage up and running for FreeThought Fort Wayne, and the Hoosier Humanist Hour will also have a subtext in there. So we'll have our own page, possibly a couple of pages. And again, we're also looking for feedback from you guys out there, the listeners. So if you guys want a topic that you want to suggest, or if you're looking for information, or if you want to look for information on FreeThought Fort Wayne, I highly recommend checking that out. If it is not up and running, it will be shortly. And you can also check us out on Facebook.
Yeah, there's a webpage already there. It's a mess. It's not. It hasn't been updated much, and hopefully, with this new webpage, it'll be a little bit easier to update, and it'll look a little bit nicer and all that. So
yeah. So anyone who. Yeah, I do want to say, though, anyone who's looking at the webpage now, if it hasn't been updated and it's still the old webpage, don't be discouraged by that. That webpage, pretty much, it requires an IT professional to update that thing, and nobody knows how to do that. So we're changing formats to go to a much more user-friendly template-style internet web design thing. And so that way we can pretty much train anybody in like 10 minutes if they just want to volunteer to update things here and there. So the web pages for not only FreeThought Fort Wayne, but the Hoosier Humanist Hour are going to be updated much more regularly, if not daily or even by the hour.
Is there going to be like any ability for listeners to comment or anything like that?
Yes. I think the best thing for that is probably on the Facebook page or email.
Have we gotten any comments or like anything like, hey, listen to your show, you guys suck, or something like that? Anything at all?
Well, I've only just recently created the Facebook page, and I'm still kind of working on some of the kinks. But if you guys out there want to listen and join us on Facebook, it's the Hoosier Humanist Hour, 95.7.
In fact, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We should be the only one, and it's an open page. Anyone can join.
In fact,
and again, if you want to comment and post, have fun.
I'm sending out a request to any listener out there to please just type in like a period and push enter for participation. I'm curious to see if we have any listeners who can let us know that you're there.
Yes. Speaking of, really, really quick before I forget, anybody who's listening to this on radio, if you're having issues hearing us, there's a link that I post on our Facebook page every Tuesday before the air shows, so that you can listen to it on live broadcast on a stream format to your phone or iPad. If you can stream from the internet, you can hear it in the best possible quality.
Yeah, 95.7 WLT does stream online, so that's a great point that you're making there.
But as far as other secular resources go, I actually was recently made aware of there's a web page, but it's also an app called United Core.
Okay.
United Core is an app it's a global outreach for secular events or just secular activities in your area, secular organizations. It's essentially a guide for anything secular in your area, so long as the people in that area are signed up to the app. So we, for example, are going to be contributing to this app. Since we are a secular organization, we can apply to be in this app. So we're going to do that. And I also want to encourage other secular groups. If you are in a secular group and you're listening to this, it's called United Core. Core is spelled C-O-R. There's no E. I highly recommend looking into this app. I mean, this is something that works nationwide, and it's very young, but I predict that this is going to be one of the best resources for finding secular information in your area, no matter where you are.
Well, that's great. That's great. Yeah, no, but let's just keep going down the list here. You know, with I mean, the American Humanist Association does so much out there, right? And apps like that are going to help it. But you know, if you can't find what you're looking for on there, you know, I think the American Humanist Association is a great resource. They have an online magazine and a printed magazine called The Humanist. So I believe if you just go to thehumanist.com, you can see most of the publication there. I think it's a great magazine. They have really interesting articles on humanism, on various topics, you know, news, politics, what have you. You know, and I think members of the American Humanist Association actually get the Humanist magazine can get it as a subscription, basically, like any other magazine out there. So I think it's great.
Yeah, I've never actually looked into. I've seen a Humanist magazine, but I've never actually read it or tried to keep up with the kind of content they put out. Is it pretty engaging, or is it? Has anybody kept up with it at all?
I think when I first became a member of the American Humanist Association, they sent me like one edition of it, and it was pretty interesting. I mean, there was some great articles in it. You know, I found it to be on par with some of the best magazines out there. I thought it was great. But other publications, you know, there's something called the Humanist Press. And if you go to the Humanist Press, and it's just humanistpress.com, basically provides you resources for how to find, you know, humanist books, and that's paper and ebooks that they have. And it's, you know, this is affiliated again with the American Humanist Association, and they have many different books and many different topics. I mean, you can find the Jefferson Bible in there, you know, just all kinds of interesting books, really, on various topics, from fiction, humor, religion, psychology, politics, poetry, philosophy. You know, it's all organized by genres, by author, you know, all that. It's searchable database. So that's cool. Out there as well.
Thomas Jefferson was a humanist, right? Is that true?
I believe so. I mean, it depends. There's a debate on that. But one of the cool things. Oh, go ahead.
I think it's important to recognize too, like we were mentioning before, you know, a humanist back then would have looked a lot different than a humanist today. I mean, a humanist is making the most rational possible decisions. Well, at least that's the goal anyway. And you know, back then, what would have been rational for him to believe might not be rational today. So I mean, I don't know if they're even. I would hope anyway that they'd incorporate that. But I think that he was, if using that as one of my premises.
Yeah, and one interesting fact is, you know, Jefferson actually created what's called the Jefferson Bible. So he basically took a pair of scissors to the Bible and erased every supernatural reference to Jesus from it, like just cut it out, and then just pasted everything else together and created a book out of it. And if you become a member of the AHA, you actually get that in your welcome packet kind of thing. But of course, it's updated. It's a Jefferson Bible for the 21st century. And so there's other stuff in there on different religions, and it's outside of what Jefferson did. But I think it's a very interesting read. I read through most of it, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting what he did to it.
Really? How much did you read through most of it? Like, it's a much shortened version of the Bible.
Oh yeah. It's a tiny book. It's
He cut out the
maybe
entire Bible.
it's a small format, not even 100 pages probably.
That's hilarious. He cut out all things supernatural, and he was left with like 100 pages.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I think it started with like the King James version of the Bible, so it's kind of hard to read, especially with the stuff that's cut out. It's a little
So
weird.
is it like the
Full sentence.
terrible joke, sorry.
No. It is full sentences. It is readable. It's just just the style of the English that's in there was a little bit hard for me to try to get the meaning and to understand all the words and how they fit in a sentence and all that. So it's a bit of a focused read, but it was interesting. I mean,
I've never read that. I'm gonna have to look into that and read part of it. I guess if it's 100 pages.
Oh yeah, very short little book.
You could totally say you've read the whole Bible. Like, have you read the whole Bible? Oh yes, the Jeffersonian version. I read it in one night.
One night.
I'm sorry. I'm totally sidetracking this.
Yeah, man, I finished the book before my bathwater got cold, bro. I'm gonna ace that thing.
Oh man, good times. Yeah. So one very interesting thing that I found on the American Humanist Association website is something about this guy named Corliss Lamond, and the website there was www.corliss-lamont.org. Corliss Lamond. He's a very interesting philosopher. He was a professor, written books, poems, all kinds of really, really good stuff. Never heard of him before. Just found him in my research for this.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot out there that we don't even know about. It's just kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'm curious about this guy. Can you say his name one more time?
Corliss
Lamont.
Lamont.
Corliss Lamond. I see, that name sounds really familiar to me. So what's the deal with him, man?
Okay, so
Well,
I will read
he's-
the Wikipedia definition
Oh, there
if
you
you
go.
want, but I don't think people are going to like it. It says Corliss Lamont was an American socialist philosopher and advocate of various left-wing and civil liberty causes. So we've just lost most of our audience here in Fort Wayne. As a part of his political activities, he was the chairman of National Council of American Soviet Friendship, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, but that doesn't mean
Well,
some
but
of his
I think-
ideas aren't interesting.
Yeah. We should separate his politics from his
Mhm.
more progressive views, maybe.
Well, we have to because we're humanists.
Yeah, there you go.
I like it.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting guy. At first glance, some of the stuff he wrote were very interesting. But to go back to like the meat and potatoes to this thing, a lot of people, like if you listen to podcasts or read through secular websites and stuff like that, one thing you notice is the lack of therapy support. Sometimes people need to speak to a therapist, or for whatever reason, or they need to go to like an Alcoholics Anonymous group or participate in some kind of group therapy, and so often they just push God on you. I mean, I haven't had to ever take advantage of anything like that. I don't know if you guys have.
Well, I've had
No.
therapy in the past,
Okay.
and on day one, we kind of got to know each other a little bit, as you would expect. And right off the bat, one of the first questions that came out of his mouth was, "Well, are you religious or spiritual in any way?" And at the time, I was spiritual. I believed in ghosts and demons and things like that. So but I told him I wasn't religious. I didn't believe in God. So I don't know if that really played much of a role, because it never came up again, though. See, and that's the thing. And the demonic imagery was, I don't have a problem admitting this. The demonic imagery was incorporating itself into a PSD issue that I had at the time. And surprisingly, we were able to work through this, and religion never came up at all, not once.
Huh.
I don't know if this is common or not, though. I'm just telling you my story.
Well, the interesting thing, that's very interesting, and it seems like you had a good experience, but a lot of people haven't. A lot of people have basically run away from therapy that they needed because of how much religion was pushed down on them. I've heard those kind of stories from people online, all that. So there is a group out there that's called the Secular Therapist Project, and I believe it's sponsored by Recovering from Religion Foundation, and it's seculartherapy.org. If somebody goes on there, you can find a therapist. Basically, it's not gonna push God on you. And they have a little chart down here, and it says that the number of therapists that they have as of February of 2017, as of just basically now, is just slightly over 300. I don't know, where they're located, if they're all, in just big cities or not, but, it's compared to September of 2016, they were about 280, and now they're about 305. So they've added like 25 therapists in just a few months. So this thing is growing. It's, people are going on there, and it's growing. And they also have a little chart on there for number of clients. And they've actually, as of February 2017, they have over 10,000 clients. Over 10,000 people have looked for secular therapy through this website. And again, going back to September 2016, it was about 9,200, and now it's about 10,200. So it's added 1,000 people looking for therapy since February 2017.
Wow.
So I think that's great. There's a, they ask for donations on there. They seem to be related to the Patheos blog as well. But I think it's a great resource for people. Not something that's commonly known out there, and hopefully this helps someone.
Yeah, I agree. That's really nice. I think for a lot of people who consider themselves atheists, a lot of them are coming out of religion and have a deep animosity toward religion for maybe forever, or at least for a while. So it would be very difficult to talk to a therapist if that animosity was present.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you guys feel like maybe sometimes therapists are taking a shortcut by pushing God? I almost feel like they're not doing their job when they start pushing God on you.
I think they think the exact opposite.
You really? You think
Yeah.
They think they're helping?
Yes, absolutely.
Huh.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't think they have any malicious intent. I think they're really there to help these people. At the very least, I think they're there to make a buck, but I don't think that they're doing it just to do it for the sake of doing it.
Maybe I should have been a little more clear. I don't doubt that they're there to help people, but by pushing God, it seems to me like they're taking the shortcut. I don't know if they're really addressing the issue. They're just putting this figure on top of you that's always watching you, and almost like when people are watched, they behave better. So maybe if we tell you that God is looking, maybe you'll behave better. I don't know. It just seems like a little bit
That's
of
an interesting theory.
inappropriate
though.
shortcut.
Well, let's try to look at it from I mean, if you have a secular therapist, if I was your therapist, if I was your therapist and you had problems, and like I could see how they would be rooted in religious beliefs, I would be like, well, you got to get rid of these religious beliefs or you're screwed.
Yeah, but it's not always that though. I mean, some
it's
people
not always that.
just are depressed or have experienced, maybe loss of a family member, and they just, or who knows? I mean, there's many reasons why people go to therapy, and there's nothing wrong with that. There may be a little bit of stigma out in society. I think it's completely wrong. If you need some help, you need some help. You know what? Nothing wrong with that.
Well, when I went to church, it was frowned upon to get, therapy from any kind of secular resources. If you needed some sort of counseling or therapy, you needed to go to your elders or whatever in the church, and they would give you, spiritual therapy. So, I mean, that kind of therapy, of course, is, absolutely biased in one way. But
of course, yeah.
But are people I was going to say, are therapists actually trained to be like impartial in their religious views, or are they invited to bring in their religious views in their profession?
Well, I mean, I know a lot of them do, invited or not. They just almost by default assume that you're probably a Christian if you live in America, and they just do. But just from some of the testimonies that I've listened to online from people, if you're an atheist, a humanist, not a Christian, which is 30% of people that live in the U.S. today, you probably don't want that. I mean, it's really ignoring 30% of society. And, if you think about it, 30% of the United States is like 100 million people. And this little, secular therapy project has 305 or 306 therapists for 100 million people. It's really not a sufficient number to address the diversity that there is in society.
I would think, I would want my therapist to be totally impartial. I think there's almost a certain ethical portion to that.
I agree, but I'd go a step further and say that part of being impartial might entail potentially encouraging some of this religious whatever it might be. Like, for example, I mean, if you're working with somebody who's having a mental breakdown, I don't think that's the moment to explain to them that God's not real. So
and I totally agree with you. Yeah.
But by and large, I am 100% right there with you guys. I think it would be unacceptable, in my opinion, especially if it was just randomly for no reason, but to just under the assumption that introducing God to this conversation is going to help this person in some way, especially in those situations. In fact, I kind of want to ask the question: is that specifically what you guys are talking about, or are you talking about also if the people are religious coming into the situation and they get religious therapy in return?
Well, I mean, I think if you're religious and, your therapist brings your religion into the conversation, I think that's perfectly acceptable. And it might even be a welcome thing to do. Just because, if you have the belief, if you're not looking to drop the belief, and that belief has helped you, it's a tool in that therapist's hand, and it can be used to help you. So I have no problem when it's something that you're not opposed to or you're looking for. But
then absolutely, I'm right there with you guys 100%. There's no reason to introduce God to a conversation. I can't see how introducing irrational X into into a mess. So they're there for a reason. There's a mess in their life that they need help fixing.
But just think about how many people believe that, if something bad happens to them, that God is trying them. They also start from a fundamental idea that that we're created this way as opposed to evolved this way. And that changes things dramatically in treating, what's going on in a person's head. At least I would think it would.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't see how it wouldn't.
So I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we've beaten this horse to death. There's other, more, also other interesting resources out there. So, for example, there's something called the Humanist Society, and if you go to their website, thehumanistsociety.org, what they have is, they can connect you with a humanist celebrant, a humanist chaplain, or a lay leader, what is called. And, I think all those are, great resources. The celebrants can perform wedding ceremonies, same-sex commitments, memorials, baby namings, things like that. Humanist chaplains, they can visit you in hospitals, nursing homes, prisons, in the military, basically doing what a chaplain would do in those situations.
Okay, maybe I don't know what a chaplain is. Can you explain that then? Because I don't think I know what a chaplain is. Then I think I have the wrong understanding of this.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like a I don't know. I've always seen him as a religious person that's out there to help people. Like in the military, if you can go and you can talk to your chaplain when you're struggling with something. It's almost like therapy. Or
okay.
Yeah. They're intended to work in more like institutional settings almost. In hospitals, in nursing homes, things like that. So, the same thing can be performed from a secular perspective.
All right. Yeah. No, we're good. You can continue then.
Yeah.
I just had the wrong impression.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right. Okay. And of course, there's the what they call a lay leader, and I didn't understand that very well, and I still don't think that I understand it very well. But it's for people that are committed to supporting military installations and things like that, organizing humanist meetings, working with the chaplains and stuff like that. So it's basically people that help you with life events, and they have also resources for how to conduct secular invocations. When oftentimes in meetings, government meetings even start with a prayer. Well, you can petition your local government to do a secular prayer, and so you can deliver a secular invocation. These guys can provide you with resources for that.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a great resource. TheHumanistSociety.org is their website.
Well, I don't know how much time we have left, but I think we're kind of broaching towards the end of our discussion. Would you mind kind of touching briefly on, because I think this is the most important one on here, that most people just don't know about, the Clergy Project.
Okay, so in just 1 second, because we are out of time, the Clergy Project is an organization that helps pastors and people that are involved, deeply involved in various churches and religious organizations, to come out of and transition into more secular life. At the latest figure that I've heard, they have something like 700 members of the clergy that have lost their faith and are trying to come out and move into secular society, which often comes at a great personal cost, losing family members, friends, all that. So it's a great support group. It's a closed society, so only people that are in know who is in, and they protect your privacy.
That is all the time we have for you this week. This has been the Hoosier Humanist Hour. be sure to check out FreeThought Fort Wayne on Facebook and on meetup.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope your days are filled with logic, reasoning, and the eternal quest for knowledge.